Hey guys, welcome back to OK Jank. Bringing you a Buddyfight deck list today for Godpunks. It's a fun little deck to play. I did a bit of trading recently and got rid of a load of spares and one of the old Shadow Paladin Vanguard decks and managed to pick this up. So just get into the deck profile now for you. So Buddy is Top Fist Vainglory Brawlzeus, so obviously running it as a 4-off in the deck. His call cost is you put a card on your opponent's field into the drop, your opponent pays a gauge and your opponent pays 1 life, and then it's got Plunder, which is when it attacks and destroys a monster or deals damage to your opponent, it deals 2 more damage and you gain 2 life. So it kind of summarises basically what the deck wants to be doing. It wants to control your opponent's field and the resources and give you the advantage. So that core cost of your opponent paying it for you is really nice. So that's 4 off for the Buddy. Then we've got 3 set spells, which are really needed in this deck to see, because it's further control. Because at the start of your opponent's main phase, you choose one of the following, which is your opponent drops a hand card and you draw a card, or you drop an opponent's gauge and you get 2 gauge. You can only have 1 of it set, so that's 3 members only Club the Deity for the set spell. It's a nice bit of further control every time on your opponent's turn after they've charged and drawn. And then the next card is Thrasher Daipan. When it enters the field, you put the top card of your opponent's deck into the gauge and you get 2, and then if you have another Godpunk on the field you can draw a card. So nice again, just to make sure your opponent's got the gauge that you can spend, to make sure you've got some gauge and then an additional draw. The next card is Immortal Speech, which is you need another Godpunk on the field to cast it. You pay 2 of your gauge, and your opponent drops a hand card and you draw 2, so additional gauge, controlling your opponent's hand. A lot of decks that don't draw really suffer from this, because you're drawing just advantage, especially if you've got things like Daipan and then you call out a Brawlzeus and things. It can really build up and get out of control for your opponent to get over with. So there's 4 Immortal Speech. And then we've got 4 of the older promo. Scariest Stare, which is you can only cast it if you've got a Godpunk on your field, which is, I think, one of the issues with the newer Ace decks is they're all restricted to needing things on the field, so a lot of responses, if you're going first and your opponent's got like an OTK deck, are a little slow, but this is still a good card to be running. Basically free drawing against a lot of things. So you can only cast it when you've got a Godpunk on the field, but then you choose a card on your opponent's field and it gets its crit reduced by 3. Then if the chosen card's crit is 0, you draw a card. So if they've got something with 3 crit or 2 crit or 1 crit, you just use this and it's a draw, basically. A free draw, as long as you've got a Godpunk on the field, which isn't that hard. And then the next spell is All Is Mine, which is you pay 1 gauge and then you search your deck basically for a monster or an item that's a Godpunk, and then you shuffle your deck. So once per turn, but it can really pull through for you, finding the pieces that you're after. Then the next is 3 Scowling Complainers. It's just a nullify, and if you have a weapon equipped you gain 3 life. It's a little underwhelming in my opinion, but it's nice just to get that life. Next is for Junk Wheel, which is you destroy a Godpunk on your field and pay 1 gauge, and then you can choose and use one of the following, which is you can either destroy up to 2 monsters on your opponent's field, and if you destroyed any, you draw a card, or you can drop all souls from a monster on your opponent's field, which is really nice. Because if you've got 2, it's not once per turn, so you can cast 1, drop all souls from it, and then you can just destroy something and draw some cards. So that's nice. And then into a couple more monsters now for the deck. Crazy Girl Deity Goth Girls. Opponent pays a gauge. So again, this is your opponent paying for you to get advantage. Your opponent cannot call monsters from the drop zone whilst this is out on the field. And when it attacks, if your opponent has 1 or less gauge, your opponent chooses and drops a hand card. So you really want to get your opponent down to 0 gauge so they can't do anything, and then attack with this so that your opponent loses further advantage from the hand. So it's a nice bit of pressure there for your opponent to have to deal with, because they'll swing into it on their turn to stop you attacking the next turn. And then next is 3 Roaring Hydra. When this card attacks and destroys an opponent's monster or deals damage to your opponent, drop 1 your opponent's gauge. If they can't drop a gauge, your opponent chooses and drops a hand card, which is really nice. Again, they either have to build up a gauge, or deal with this on their turn, or they end up dropping hand card, which with the set spell and everything can often leave your opponent with 0 cards in hand turn 2-ish, depending how well your plays have gone. And then we're running 3 Dysfunctional Hella. I can't pronounce that. You choose up to 2 Godpunk monsters with different sizes in your drop zone, other than a card with the same name as this. You pay 1 gauge and rest it, and then you put the 2 chosen cards into your hand, which is really nice. It just lets you call over things and get a bit of a loop going. It's not quite infinite, but it's nice. Just to make sure your opponent's got the gauge to pay for your things, and to get you the draws and advantage that you need. So the next monster is 3 Mingus Sapiranos. The opponent pays 1 gauge and puts the top card of the deck into its soul. Oh, sorry. Opponent pays 1 gauge and you put the top card of your deck into its soul. Just to clarify, your opponent does not give you the soul. When this card is destroyed, your opponent chooses and drops a hand card and deal 1 damage to your opponent. It's got double attack and soul guard, so if they destroy it, they're going to drop 2 cards and get dealt 2 damage, and plus it's got double attack. It's 9k to crit. It's quite a big creature to be swinging with twice in terms of the other things on your board, which are 5 and 6ks, and then Rose is again 6k. He's the only size 3 that we're running, just because he's more of a, if you've got no other options, you slap him down in the middle, swing with him twice, and then your opponent has to attack through him twice, destroy him twice, or bounce him twice to get past him and not deal damage and things. Last monster is 1 Splitter Sheer Zeus. When it enters the field, turn all your opponent's gauge to the deck, shuffle it, and pop. They get 2 gauge, and if there are any of their gauge will return, you gain 2 life. So it's just another little bit of life gain for you, and making sure that if you need 2 gauge of your opponents to do anything and they've only got 1, you can do this, and it shuffles their gauge back into the deck to give them 2, so that you've got 2 to work with rather than just the 1. So it's just a nice little tech slot. There are other things you can run in the deck. And then obviously because we have spells which need an item equipped, we're running 2 items, which are Skyblade Jacket, which is you pay 1 gauge, you pay 1 life. This card on the field can't be destroyed by opponent's card effects, and it gives all Godpunk monsters on your field 4,000 power and move, so that bumps your 5Ks and your 6Ks up to 9s and 10s. It bumps Fingers Myriad up to 13k, which can be over a lot of the more defensive decks that are out at the moment, and the fact it's got move, so you can move your things into better positions so that your opponent will attack into them, or so it keeps them alive for the next turn and just gives you an open centre, more incentive for your opponent to attack you directly. Then we've got 2 impacts for the final phase. Top Fist Punishment, Cavernous Burst Fist. You can only cast it if your opponent's got 5 life or less and you have a Godpunk on your field. You pay 1 gauge, deal 2 damage to your opponent, but if they've got no damage, no gauge, it deals 5 to your opponent instead. You could bump this down to 1, bump up the item or the shield Zeus up just for consistency reasons, because you don't really go into it, but it's nice to have for options, as I would say. Final Danger World, before we get into some generics, is 1 Almighty Group. It's just another set spell. It just gives all Godpunk on your field 3,000 power, and then during your turn, when a card's put into your opponent's gauge by a card effect, you gain 2 life and draw a card, so it's a little bit of extra life gain and another draw. You could bump this up to 2, and the other one at 2 as well, so that you're running 4 set spells still, but the other one is better in my opinion, because it's doing what the deck wants to do, which is control your opponent's resources. This is nice, but it's more of a benefit than a necessity for the deck. Then into some generics. To finish off the deck, we've got 2 Time Sale, just some free draw, where you're not restricted to needing something on the field, and then obviously if you're at 3 life or less, it's free, so drawing 2 cards, which is quite nice. And then final is a Gambit. Return all of your monsters from the field to your hand, just so that you can recall Brozus out a couple of times. You can recall this and get more monsters back to your hand. You can recall basically all your monsters, because they all have a good effect when they hit the field. Daipan, for example, when it enters, really good, just to keep a bit of a loop going. And that actually is the deck then. The side deck, when I picked the deck up, I was thrown a load of other spares. I've not figured out yet exactly how I'd want to side deck it. Probably another Time Sale, probably another item I'd side deck in, and then I think there was one, let me just have a quick flick through these here. Yeah, there's another Negate, which is Invincible Knuckle. Again though, you need a Godpunk on the field, you pay 1 gauge, it deals 1 damage to your opponent and you gain 1 life. Maybe it's a better Negate. I might side some of them in. I might swap them out during a bit of testing and just see which feels nicer for the deck. But yeah, really there's not a whole lot of different stuff to add in, without going too off track of what the deck wants to do. So that's the Godpunk deck list for Buddyfight. hope you guys have enjoyed. Leave a comment, subscribe. Feedback's always appreciated, and I'll catch you next time.